In this CineGuru tutorial, we're going to take a look at the simplest way that you can instruct a camera to look at a specific object in your scene. So first, let's grab a camera, and I'm going to drop it into the scene, and I'm going to name it Cam 1. I'm going to give it an 8-second shot, so that's 8,000 milliseconds. I'm not going to bother with a fade at the start, and I'm going to give it a slightly narrower FOV, so 60 degrees and 60 degrees, and there isn't another camera, so we'll delete that parameter and we'll just leave it like that. Okay, and then I'm going to give 3 different objects in this scene to demonstrate this technique. So one's going to be a barrel, one is going to be a character, and the other one is going to be just a static entity, the supply drop entity. So I will drop in a cine-trigger zone, put a little bit of sand under that, and I'm going to name it accordingly. So it's going to be called camera, cam 1. So it's a cine-trigger zone that triggers cameras, and the name of the camera that it triggers is camera 1. And we'll drop in a player start marker. So if I were to run this game level now, you can see that we haven't rotated the camera towards any of these objects. So when activated, this camera will kind of just point off towards the horizon like this, pointing, I guess we can call that north. But there is a way that we can set this up so that it targets a specific entity in our scene. And the way we do that is by naming that entity in a specific way. So let's take this barrel as an example and go into its properties, and we're going to name this cam1 underscore target. And by doing that, CineGuru will seek out any objects that share the same camera name as the one that's currently active, and it will point those cameras at, or point that camera at that object without us having to do a thing. So rather than pointing north and just pointing off towards the horizon, now that this camera's active, it's pointing at our barrel. Specifically the base of the barrel, and we'll come on to why that is in a second. So that's all pretty good. So let me just move our barrel out of the way for a second, and we'll give it a generic name. And we'll try that same technique using a character. So let's rename this character cam1 underscore target. And I'm also going to change a couple of other things about this character. I'm going to make him follow a couple of waypoints so that you can see that this does work on moving objects as well. So I'm going to change his script to melee patrol, and to make sure he doesn't attack me, I'm going to reduce his view cone angle and view range to 1. So he's a very dumb enemy, this one, but he does what he's supposed to for this example, which is he will follow a waypoint. Very simple back and forth path. So we've named this character cam1 underscore target. So now when we activate the camera will lock on to that character and will seek him out, and will actually follow him for the 8 seconds of that shot. And you can see that we're looking at his feet. So the reason that CineGuru is doing this is because it's looking for the origin point of these entities. And so with this barrel, with this character, the origin point is where ground is. So working in kind of closely sort of confined spaces like this with tight camera angles sometimes is not the best way to use this technique. So let's just delete these waypoints for the moment, and we'll rename our character back to something normal like soldier. And let's just take this barrel and we'll name him cam underscore 1 target. So in close-up it's not ideal, but in a wide shot it works out fine. And I can take this barrel, and if I go and put it on top of this hill that I've put in the map, we're now quite a long way from the camera, and when we enter this zone, the camera will turn and point towards this barrel over here, and obviously it's on a slope, so it's going to roll down the hill, and the camera will follow that roll. And I think what I'll do is I'll put our player start marker inside the cine-trigger zone. So that means that from the moment this level starts, we will be looking through cam 1 at this barrel it will activate as soon as the game level starts. And there you are. You can see we are following our little barrel as he rolls down the hill. And you can see in a wide shot like this, it works out fine. And at the end of the cinematic, control is returned to the player. So back in the editor, I'm just going to delete this barrel. And we're going to take a look at this static entity. We're going to rename it to cam1_target. And this is really just to show that this doesn't work with static entities. So if we now go into test game, you can see that we've activated the camera, but it's just pointing north. It's not actually facing our entity. So just something to be aware of. It needs to be dynamic, the entity that you attach this to. So you're going to have to go in and set the static mode to no, and that turns it into a dynamic entity. So something to be aware of in case, you want the entity to be light mapped or whatever. It won't be, because it'll have to be dynamic. The other thing you can do is if you drag out a static copy, you can press Y on the keyboard and that will toggle it to dynamic, and then you can set it down, and that is now a dynamic object. And now that we've set this as dynamic, it's still called cam1_target. I'll just go in and you can see that we are looking at the supply dump there, but it's very definitely, the middle of the screen is very definitely the origin point of that entity. So that's one somewhat rudimentary but can be quite useful method for pointing a camera at a specific object. In the next tutorial, we're going to take a look at a different method using a different marker entity called focal points, which allow you to point the camera at a specific point in 3D space.